A very good evening to one and all present here, and welcome to the third day, the security threats and attacks. So what we are going to learn in today's session, I will be just briefing about what we are going to learn in terms of outcomes. So upon the completion of the session, we will be able to understand, as learners you will be able to understand, you will know about the attacks that are there. You will come to know about the email spoofing with the help of a demo. And you will understand the phishing attack. We will have an activity and we will see the phishing attack. And finally, we will see what is steganography. So in order to ensure security to the data that is being transmitted between the sender and the receiver, we normally encrypt the data. Once the data comes out of our network, obviously it is not in our hands. So we don't know in what way the data is going, how many routers it is crossing, what happens to the data once it leaves our computer. Definitely it's not in our control. So obviously it's not recommended to send your data just like that as a plain text. And that's why we are going to convert that into ciphertext and we are going to send. If that is the case, even ciphertext is not secured, right? There are chances for attackers to come to the ciphertext and see what the data is if they know what encryption algorithm we use and what key we use. And that's the topic of the day, the attacks. Generally, attacks means, let's take the scenario. This is an attack. And this is also an attack. And then comes the popular third attack. Now, what is happening here is, when anything that causes damage, we will call that as an attack. So this is just an analogy. We will see theoretically what is an attack. Any action that compromises the security of information owned by an organization is called as an attack. Say you are protecting your network. You are saying that my network should not be sniffed or my packets should not be known to others. My data should not be revealed to others and nobody can trespass into my network and take my data. And you are protecting your computer network with some security measures. But there are some actions that compromises the security measure that what you have put on, right? Say, for example, you are establishing a rule in your firewall. For example, I am saying that nobody should access google.com. When your organization is putting a rule like that, and when you are trying to send www.google.com in a browser, obviously, your firewall will protect that. Your firewall will deny that packet and thereby you will never get response from google.com. But if you know certain ways to bypass the firewall, that is an attack. So any action, that's what, any action that compromises the security of information owned by an organization, we call that as an attack. That's what a very important terminology is. Generally, attacks are classified into active attack and passive attack. Now, Rajendran sir, am I going in the right direction? Am I audible? Can you unmute and talk to me? Rajendran sir, I just want to get a confirmation.
Sir,
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
It's very clear and the presentation is also visible, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I thought it's still silent. That's why. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, so there are two attacks. Basically, if you say that I am a victim of any such action, then you will be falling in either active attack or passive attack. Let me just give you the difference between active attack and passive attack. You may be calling, sir, denial of service attack, sir, password cracking attack, sir, smurf attack, ping of death attack, many attacks, ransomware attack, malware attack, whatever you say. And all these attacks will be either falling in active attack or passive attack. What is passive attack is that the data, let's say I have my laptop here and my data is coming out of my laptop and somebody is just sniffing what is being transmitted between the sender computer and the receiver computer. And he is not trying to modify the data that is being transmitted. Rather, the intention of the attacker is to know what the data is being transmitted between the two entities. If the intention is just to know the data or what file is being transmitted, when it is being transmitted, without altering the data that is being sent, that comes under passive attack. And if any modification is done, then it is called active attack. Say an attacker is launching an attack to your laptop and deleting a file. It is an active attack. An attacker is launching an attack and stopping the server to function normally that itself is an attack. That itself is an active attack. You know why they are active? Because the users are getting affected a lot. Now, when we talk about the seriousness, both attacks are serious. It's not like passive attacks are inferior and active attacks are superior. Both attacks are very dangerous. I'll tell you, the company secret or the country's secret, if it is revealed, it's not getting modified, but it is revealed. Obviously, that is a big disaster to the country, right? So, whether it is a passive attack or an active attack, anything that causes damage to the organization, obviously it is an attack. So now what is that? What the attacker is hoping to gain from this attack? So simply, the first thing is they wanted to say, I did it. Say, for example, somebody was asking about what is black hat hacker, gray hat hacker, and white hat hacker. I was sniffing that conversation, to be precise. I was just sniffing that conversation. White hat hackers, their intention is ethical. Okay, if I am a white hat hacker and I am being deployed or I am being recruited by my company, and I will be launching the attacks against the servers in my organization just to know whether attacks are possible and just to strengthen the company's security. So this is purely white hat hackers. Okay, black hat hackers are attackers. They are bad guys. Can you understand the difference now? Okay, so if the black hat hacker's intention is he just wanted to say I did it, or they don't have any rights, but they claim to be saying like bragging rights. Okay, so attacker's intention will be the bragging rights simply to say I did it. And what about the gray hat hackers? They are partially ethical, partially unethical, and they can made as an ethical hacker. Okay, so we can convert them because they are residing between white and black, and that's why they are gray. And theft of information will be one of the goals of the attackers. Theft of services, theft of information. Somebody is giving you their laptop to you, and you are protecting the laptop with your password. Okay, say for example, I am giving my laptop to you, and I am restricting you. You cannot open D drive. For example, all my confidential data are in my D drive, and I am putting a security measure, and you are somehow bypassing the security measure and stealing the data. That is theft of information. And what about theft of service? Say, for example, your server is running, and let's say it's a DHCP server. Okay, DHCP means it's a dynamic host configuration protocol server, where you are accessing, your computer is contacting the DHCP server for getting an IP address. If you are not sure about this DHCP, ignore it. So manually you can assign IP address, or you can have a DHCP server to give an IP address. If an attacker is corrupting the DHCP server to give a wrong IP address, then that's the theft of service. And coming to the next one, the theft of real assets or money. If your bank account is stolen, your credit card need not be physically stolen. Rather, your credit card details or somehow some intellectual attacks or delinquent attacks are possible, right? So that you may not lose your money physically, but your bank account's money is getting reduced, which we call as the theft of real assets or money. Then defacing the public properties, which we call as vandalism, right? So government servers will be hacked, just to cause damage to the public property. That will be one of the motives for attackers. Destruction of data, corruption of operational services, and the denial of service attacks. In most of the cases, the attacks will be from the ex-gruntled employees. Okay, so normally the attacks will be from the ex-gruntled employees. And that's why I'll start with the basic, like the password cracking. Okay, so I will give you the important thing. You will wonder, sir, such a simple attack is still very powerful. I will just show this. Just see, guys, I'm just opening some websites, tnebnet.org or some website I'm visiting. And I am giving this laptop to some of my friends. Okay, so I'm just giving my laptop to some of my friends, and I know I have saved my password in this laptop. Can you see here? I have saved my username and I have saved my password. Okay, you may think that your password is not visible, right? You are thinking that, oh, your password is protected. Even if you give your laptop to somebody else, they can't steal. Just see a very simple attack I'm launching on these cookies. These passwords are stored in the cookies, right? I want to emphasize here that all attacks are dangerous. It's not like password, or it's not like a big attack. Just see a very simple attack. I'm just actually this is the laptop that I'm right now working, and this is the server, right? So from this laptop to the server, the communication has happened, and the server has stored the password in the cookies of my computer, right? Because the validated information, the right password is now stored. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on it, inspect element, because all are HTML coding between the client and the server, right? So you can see that this is the inspect element part, like the input ID is password and the type is password, right? Instead of making it as a password, why don't we change it as a text and see the real password? Can you see this is the password? So it's not like a tough thing to do with the attacks. Okay, can you see this is the password is now visible? So you had given this system or laptop, your personal laptop, or you would have accessed a public computer, or you may access your computer in your corporate network or in your office or in your college or even in your university. That's not your property, right? So in that case, if you save your passwords, it's easy. Even if your network is hacked, and from that network we can use some Nmap kind of tools. Nmap, okay, there is a utility called Nmap, and that Nmap will say what are all the services that are running, and we can find out what host is running, in what operating system it is running. We can just capture the system. We can take what is there in the cookies. It's a very simple attack. I just want to say it's not like simply password means like storing the password is secured. Just I want to emphasize only this point. Any attack, it's disaster. Okay. So normally all our passwords are saved as either as a plain text password, or say you are accessing the tneb.net server. Now the database of that server is going to store your password, obviously, right? So the database of your server is going to store the password. And how it is going to store the password? If it is going to store the password simply using as a plain text, say for example, there is another column in the table that it is created. Okay, just if you are aware of DBMS, database management system, you can create a table where username can be stored just like that. Password is also stored just like that. If it is a plain text password, SQL injections attacks are there. Many cross scripting attacks, SQL injection attacks are there. We can launch an attack to the SQL server. We can take the passwords. And that's why this is the oldest form of storing the passwords. And that's why in the recent days, they have migrated from storing, they have refrained from storing the passwords just as a plain text. Rather, they are going to hash it and store. Okay. Hashing the password and storing is very interesting. Why? Because your password is not going to be stored just like that. Rather, it is going to be stored in a different manner. Okay. So this hashing is going to help you a lot. The hash function, what you use, is going to give you the value. Anyway, I will be just showing the demo right now here. Just see what is the hash function we are going to use. Can you see here? This is MD5 hash function I'm going to use. I want to just demonstrate what is the actual hash value. So I will, this is the location where my MD5 is residing. I will copy this. I will go to my command prompt. Just see guys, I am going to my command prompt. And I'm changing my location to this. So can you see here? Right now I am in this location. Okay. So can you see the Kalam's photo is here? Dr. Kalam's photo is here. I'll just open it in Windows. Open with Windows Photo Viewer. So this is actually Kalam's photo. Can you understand here? What I am going to do is I'm going to run this MD5 utility. And I'm going to use Kalam search photo, K-A-L-A-M, okay? Kalam search photo, and we can see the MD5 SHA is stored. So this is what the information for Kalam search image, okay? So this is what the information should be stored in your, in your database. It should not be simply stored just like that. So only this utility can give this right value. Any number of times you run this utility, you will be getting the same value. I hope you can see this, okay? You can see this. So this is what the value that we are getting here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change a bit. Just see, I'm just right clicking on it. Open with MS Paint. Okay. I'm opening with Paint. I'm just modifying this image a little bit. Just a one dot additionally I'm including. Okay. Just a small dot. I'm taking the yellow color somewhere. I'm zooming it to the core somewhere. I'm putting one small yellow color line. I'm saving it. Okay. Now this is not the original information. Is a 1 bit means a bit change is there, right? It's not simple bit. In RGB color format, some bits are changed. Right now, I'm going to run the same utility. Just see. I'm going to run the same utility for the same Kalam sir's photo. Can you see here? Previously, it was started with 88. Now, completely all bits are changed. Can you notice here? All bits are changed. Likewise, your password should also be saved like this. Can you see there is a Word document called My Message. The present final year B section students are not good. Like I will change it as are not good. Okay, some content I have, and I'm going to generate the MD5 SHA fingerprint, MD5 fingerprint for this message. My Message. I know I'm a little bit fast. I will reduce the speed now. My message.txt. So some MD5 SHA is generated for this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text a little bit. Okay, I'm just opening this My Message. One dot I am additionally placing. Now I am going to run the same utility. Can you see here? Now the fingerprint is completely different. Actually, this was the fingerprint without dot, and this is the fingerprint with dot. So what I mean to say here is, this is what the hashing concept is. For all the text, with a variable length text it is going to take, and it is going to generate the fixed length value in your database. So I want you to make a note of this, like this is the actual hash value for the message, whether it is a image file or whether it is a text file, whether it is a character. So your password should be saved in the database like this, okay? And that is what this point reveals. Your password hashing. Go for a hashing algorithm and save your passwords using the hashing technique. And simply hashing technique, you know, all the hash algorithms are public, and simply hashing will not give you result. So what is recommended is, why don't you combine the words just like that, random words, and create the hash. It gives more security, right, to what is stored in the database. You know, if you just know the database, if you just have the database, if somebody steals your database, or if somebody cracks your database or attacks your database and takes the entire database which contains the username and password, it will not be just easy for them to attack. Can you see here? This is what the MD5 cracker, this is what the MD5 I have generated. I will just right click on it. I will copy it. I have just copied this. There are a lot of tools in the internet. You can go to this, type simply MD5 cracker. MD5 cracker. There are many online utilities. Okay, just click on the MD5 cracker. Any MD5 cracker you can use, and it will ask you to enter what is the hash you want to crack. Can you see? I'm placing the hash and I'm just authenticating it. It's quite difficult to retrieve it. Can you see? It's saying it could not resolve this. Why? Because when you create a hash with multiple options, it's not easy. If the attacker gets this, and if he's trying all possible combinations like this, it is a brute force attack, which I'm going to address in the coming lecture. Okay, so this is a brute force attack, which I mean to say here. So this is what password hashing and sorting. Now, what is password cracking? So I talked about passwords, right? There are many attacks that are possible. Let's say, for example, dictionary attack. So in dictionary, we have all words, right? If you are using a password like computer 123, hello, all these are dictionary words. If you observe, it's very easy to attack. So dictionary attack means there will be a file, say for example, all passwords, all English words are stored. Okay, and then your password is going to be compared with that, and finally at one fine point of time we will be getting what is that, what is your password. It's a dictionary attack. And when you try with all possible combinations, for example, if your password is a 5-character password, right from A to Z, or A1, A2, A3, all possible attempts, it's very difficult for the human beings to do that, but an automated program or a computer program can do this. This is actually brute force attack. And just see what I have demonstrated using the hash. It is a rainbow table attack. Say for example, you got the State Banks of India's database. You got State Banks of India database, and you are finding all credit card numbers are available, and the passwords or PIN numbers are stored in the encrypted format or in the hashed format. And you can launch these kind of rainbow table attack to know what is the actual password that is stored. Okay. Then comes the phishing attack. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the phishing attack in today's lecture by directly showing the demonstration. Then there are some social engineering attacks with some tools like Metasploit. Malware, some malicious softwares like virus, worms, or trojans, or ransomwares. All these are coming under malwares. Ransomware, I want to talk about this. You know about viruses, worms to the basic, right? Virus, it causes damage, or it corrupts your data, or it annoys you somehow. Ransomwares are very important. Nowadays these ransomware attacks are increasing day by day. Say if ransom means you would have studied this or you would have heard this. Say there is a person called Rajesh, for example, and I am confiscating Rajesh. I am bringing it to my home and I am just making him disguising from others. I'm making a call to Rajesh's father or mother by saying, pay me 1,000 rupees, only then I will release your son. Okay, this is actually ransom. Okay, ransom. Likewise, in a computer environment also, what we can do is we can launch an attack on the target system by just encrypting all the data in the system. So all the data in the computer system of the target machine is encrypted. Only you know how to decrypt it. When all the important files in the target system are encrypted, the owner of the system will be confused and he desperately wants to retrieve his data. So what he'll be doing? He'll be seeking for the solution, right? At that time, you will be giving him an announcement like, if you want to decrypt your data, pay this money or pay this much to this account. Okay, online transactions only. So with this, that kind of attack, once the money is paid, you can release the key, you can decrypt everything, so then the data can be. So that's what we call as malware. Offline password cracking, say there are some keyloggers. When you go and access internet cafe or public computers, you don't know what keylogger softwares are installed. Whatever key you type in the keyboard, that will be captured in a separate software. We don't know it is running at the background. Once you go out, if you make a financial transaction, if you go out, the cafe owner, what he can do? He can open the software and see what are the keys you have typed. At one fine point of time, they will come to know what password you have entered, right? And shoulder surfing attack. So I'm taking much time here. So I'll just give shoulder surfing attack and spider cracking. Actually, there is a mistake. Spider cracking. All these are online based attack and there are some guessing attacks. So what I will do is I will just give you a tool called John the Ripper. This is a tool, well-known tool for password cracking. Okay. If you have not heard about this tool is available for Windows, Mac, even for Linux based distributions also. So you can try in your free time about this John the Ripper tool for password cracking. So let me go on to the topic of the session is the spoofing attack. Just observe what is spoofing in the context of information security and especially network security. A spoofing attack is a situation where a person or program successfully identifies as another. Say, I am the person who is accessing the computer. Let's say I am the person who is accessing gmail.com of another person's account. According to Gmail, when I give the password, username and the password, Gmail doesn't know who is giving the username and password, right? According to Gmail, it authenticates the person or it authenticates the user just by username and password. It doesn't know anything about who is actually doing this. If say for example, there is a communication between two parties X and Y. X is sending some data to Y. Okay. So Y can confirm X is sending the data. What if Z comes into the picture and sending the data like X? If Z is sending the data like X and Y believes that it is from X, then it is called as spoofing. Okay, so there are multiple spoofing. We can use protocol spoofings like IP protocol. You can spoof. Say if you have an IP packet, what is the source computer's IP address? What is the destination computer's IP address will be there in the IP packet. Okay, you can contact any server, use Wireshark kind of packet sniffing tool, and you can see what is the source IP address and what is the destination IP address. So you can spoof. Okay, if your firewall is protecting like data should not come from 10.6.6.6. You can spoof it as the source IP address is not 10.6.6.6. You can make it as 200.200.200.5. so that when the packet is received by the firewall, it allows that packet. Because you have spoofed it, it's not actually 10.6.6.6, it's 200 something, right? So this is what protocol spoofing is there. Caller ID spoofing. So we, from my mobile number, if you launch an attack against the telecom industry, so your destination will receive a call from your mobile number, but actually that call is not initiated by you. So this is caller ID spoofing. And we are going to see the demo now for email address spoofing. Okay, I'm going to show a demo on this email address spoofing, where if you don't know anything about the email addresses, you can spoof that. Okay, I will show that. Geolocation spoofing. I will also show you what is geolocation spoofing. Say you are accessing from India. The router says you are from India. Okay, and you don't want your identity or your location to be revealed. So you are going to change the location of the packet as, say, for example, from your computer, if the data is going, obviously it knows the data is generated in the Indian location, right? But you can spoof the location and you can say the data is from America or from Germany or from London. Okay, that you can do it using virtual private networks, or there is a VPN networks like Hola, or you can have Tor browsers. I will show that now. The geolocation spoofing. Okay, so we will focus on the email address spoofing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a demonstration of email address spoofing. So this technique is just for educational purpose. Don't try this attack because you will be easily getting into the trap if you try this attack. Okay, I want you to emphasize the significance of all these attacks. So we have some websites. So I'm visiting some email. Can you see it's hacked? Okay, it's not hacked. It's not getting access by my firewall is protecting this. So what I am gonna do this, I'm gonna stop my firewall for a certain period of time. Pause the protection. So have a good antivirus program that will always help you to give protection against all the malicious activities that you do. So I am crossing the protection of the computer. Now I am launching an attack. Can you see now this website is visible? So I'm going to do a email spoofing attack. So I'm going to apply. So say, for example, I'm going to start the mail from DHL Express, for example. There is a company, right? DHL Express. And I'm going to say the from email ID as admin@dhl.com. Okay, I'm going to give admin@dhl.com. So the from address of your email that you are spoofing this actually. Okay, and you are giving this to prabhuas.csc@gmail.com, and you are giving this as promotion for you, or promotion like that. Okay, some content, and you are giving the messages also to be promotion. Can you understand? You don't know whether this email ID exists or not. If you know your vice chancellor at some university.com like that, you can do it. And I'm gonna ensure that I am not a robot. After doing this, I'm going to send this message. Can you see? I'm going to send this message. So now you can notice that the email has been sent. Okay. Now, when you go and check your email, you will find that you got a mail from, you will be getting a mail from this. Okay. I'm not going into the details of this. You will be getting a mail from DHL Express. Anyway, I have ensured security policies. You will not get that. So you will get a mail like you have been actually receiving the mail from DHL Express. Okay. Now, how to check the authenticity of the mail? That's very important, right? We want to check whether we are getting the mail from the right person or not. So always see this whenever you click on the mail. Okay. Whenever you click on the mail, you will go to this triple dot. Okay. You will find show original option is here. Show original. Click on the show original and you will find whether the DMARC record or sender policy framework, this is pass. Can you understand this? So for many fictitious mails or for many spoofed mails, you will not get a pass here. Okay, you will not get a pass here. Okay, for security reasons, I have stopped this. So I will not be getting this mail. Anyway, I have tried this. Okay, I have tried this. Can you see? I have created a fictitious mail like DHL Express, and this is actually a spoofed mail. Can you see here? This is dhlexpress@glh.com. For example, I don't even know whether that email ID exists or not. Just want to spoof this like by saying holidays extended. Okay. Now, how to know the authenticity of this mail, right? So just go to this. This is actually a spoofed mail. Go to the show original option and you will find it's not from the original source. Can you see the sender policy framework? the SPF record is not showing pass. Can you understand? So this is what the email spoofing is all about. Okay, so if you want, you can try from a different source also. You can try from you can try this, but make your email ID is used. Okay, that's very, very important. So far we have dealt with so many things wherein this is one of the ways to spoof your emails. So whenever you get a message by saying, just see, I got a message here. Can you see here? I got a message here from State Bank of India, or some message I got it here. Say for example, SBI, State Bank of India. So I got a message from State Bank of India. Okay, so when I receive a mail from State Bank of India, I should ensure whether this mail is from State Bank or not, right? So I have to go to this triple dot. I have to check whether this is originally from State Bank and whether all these DMARC records or DKM all are pass. Okay, for spoofed mails, for the mails which are spoofed, you will not see this pass. Okay, so it's very, very important, because if you receive a mail, just say the same mail, holiday, instead of holiday extended, can you see, instead of holiday extended, you are getting a mail and a link here. Okay, and when you click on the link, what happens? It may not go to the right website because it's a spoofed site, right? It's a spoofed site. Anyway, I'm going to show what is phishing now. Anyway, I'll be showing phishing now. Just see what's the possibility of this phishing. So this is what the email address spoofing is. So what we are going to deal with this is, the first thing is, you need to ensure whether your email IDs are used by any people in the world or not. Okay, at the same time, whether your email address are pawned. Okay, to know about the breach of your emails, okay, just go to this website. Have I been pawned? Can you see here? Have I been pawned? Because emails address spoofing is a very dangerous attack. You think like emails, why I'm going to deal with that emails? Maybe not today, but once you go to your corporate world and you will be obviously getting salaries, at that time your email IDs may be registered with the banking system, right? In such a cases, your email ID may be an entity for the attackers to crack your details. So just go to this website. Have I been pawned? There is no A here. Please note, have I been pawned? Just click enter and give your email ID in the text box. Okay, give your email ID, prabhuyes.csc, my email ID. Okay, and it will say this is an authentic information from the internet. This will say whether your email IDs are breached and where and all it has been breached. Okay, so can you see here, I have not been pawned so far, but still there are two sites where it is breached. You just click on it and know what are all the two sites your email IDs were used. Okay, this is what the next information, since we are knowing about cyber security, right? This course is mainly about cyber security. You should know all these nuances of cyber security. Then that's why I'm showing all these stuff. Okay, and then comes the phishing attack. They're very important attack, because many people are losing their real value, their money, their bank accounts because of this phishing attack only. Just imagine you are in a holiday trip and you want to catch fish. Okay, the real fishing. Okay, you have a net. With the net you can fish, or what you can do, you can take a hook, you can have a stick. At the end of the stick you can have a hook, and you will obviously use some insects or some food in the hook, right? Because when you immerse it in the water, when you immerse that stick into the water, fishes will be attracted with the food what you are giving it. It doesn't know it is a trap, but it will get attracted towards it. It comes to that food. It tries to catch the food, and unfortunately it will be caught, right? This is what the real phishing is. Likewise, in the internet also, there is a very serious attack, which is phishing attack. This phishing is not a legitimate attack or a genuine attack. It's a fraudulent attack. Okay, it is a fraudulent attempt. It's a fraud. Phishing is a fraudulent activity. What this phishing is going to do, can you see here? This is like the stake, the hook, what I mean to say. So this is what the person's original computer, and this computer's information is somehow stolen by this attacker. Can you see here? How? Because this guy, who is the genuine guy, right? This guy is visiting the website or visiting or falling into the trap of the attacker by just seeing or attacking or just visiting something. I will just demonstrate that now. This phishing is the fraudulent attempt to obtain sensitive information, very sensitive informations like the username, passwords, credit card details, just by disguising oneself as a trustworthy entity. Actually, State Bank of India has not sent this mail. So attacker is sending the mail as statebankofindia.com. And this attack is in the electronic form. Can you see here? Just see, guys, I will be showing this. Can anyone see the difference between these two? Can anyone see the difference between these two? What are the two words we have? Two websites I have placed, right? sbicard.com, sbicard.com. Okay. If you are not sure about it, I will increase the font size also. I want you to type this in the chat if you can see any change or any difference in the text. Okay. So I'll be increasing this with this font size 36. Now tell me, can you find any difference here? Can I have your response in the chat? So this is what that information is. sbicard.com, sbicard.com. Can I have your response in the chat? You are saying Bhargavi, Lakshman Reddy. Many people are saying there are no response, right? If there are no response, and both the requests should be carried out to the same place, right? Same destination. Just observe, guys. I'm copying the first one. I've copied this and I'm pasting the first link. Can you see where it is going? It is going to SBI Card's website, right? It's perfect. It's perfect. So this is actually sbicard.com. I agree. I will copy the second one. If you don't trust me, I will right click on it. I will copy and I will paste it here. Okay. In any tab, I will just paste it here. I will give enter. Can you see it's not going to that place? Though it seems to be both are same, they are different actually. And this is what the technique, the phishers, the attackers use, okay? Because the difference is this A is not A. Can you understand? It's very easy. Just see this, very easy. I will create a Word document. I can type the characters and I can disguise the actual text. When you get an email like this, click here. When you get an email like this, click here, okay? In the email part, you are getting the mail like click here, okay? Just see, there is the email portion here and you are getting it as click here. And this is a hyperlink, for example, okay? And when this hyperlink is given with this sbicard.com, what happens when you just click here? It's not actually going to sbicard.com. Can you understand? This is one of the phishing attacks. Because you will not check what is, right click on it and you will not check what is the link address that is going or taking to you. And when you click on it, you will find the look and feel as like SBI Card's website. Can you understand? Say the information is like, just observe this, just contemplate this. SBI Card members, very interesting offer for you. Click here to avail the offer. And in a hurry, if I just click, if without seeing the authenticity of the message, so I am falling in the trap. I'm not going to the right website, sbicard.com. Rather, I am going to the attacker site. And in the attacker's website, it seems like the original SBI page. It's very easy to create HTML pages, just like the original page, right? And when it asks me to enter username and password or credit card number and PIN number, I'm blindly giving that. So what is happening? I'm not giving it to I'm not giving those data to a SBI server. I'm giving the data to the attacker site where everything is captured just like that as a plain text. Can you understand? Say if I ask anybody to give your credit card detail, you won't give, right? Say I am asking like somebody have replied, right? Say Rajesh, for example, the same Rajesh. Rajesh, can you give me your credit card number? I am a stranger to Rajesh. I'm nowhere related to Rajesh. Will Rajesh give me his credit card debit card number? No, he will say, why should I give to you? You must ask the same question to the server when it asks, why should I give it to you? If you feel it's your server, it's your banking server, you are free to give that. But what if it is an attacker server? This is the real phishing, okay? How these characters are created, there is in the computer, we have CarMap utility. Can you see? The computer, we have CarMap utility. And the attackers, the phishers, they will use this A is not the original A. These are all the different A's. We can find a lot of interesting alphabets. Can you see this A is not the alphabet A? But when you use, it seems to be like the original A. Can you understand? But the ASCII code for this A is not that A. But this gives you the same look and feel like the original site. Can you understand? So be cautious with all this. Now we talked about the email spoofing attacks, and there is an activity for you. You are required to participate in this activity. Just observe. The activity is, already we have seen the email spoofing attack, right? Email spoofing. And also I have demonstrated what is phishing, right? And there is an activity for you. You are required to do this activity. So I will be showing you 7 emails. Okay, the activity is very simple. I'll be showing you 7 emails, and take a paper. Before getting into the activity, I request you to take a paper and make email 1, email 2, email 3, everything 7 emails you just mentioned. And I'm going to give you a code. Answer answer yes for spam. Okay, spam. Can you understand? It's a spam mail or malicious mail. Okay, let's take simply. I will type it in the chat. Just see in the chat of your window, in the chat. So you are required to answer this. M means it is malicious, it's bad. Okay, and yes means it is safe. So I have typed this, I have sent it in the chat. Can you see this in the chat? Can you see this in the chat? Okay, I have typed M means it is malicious, yes means it is safe. Okay, now you are required to answer like this. 1, M, if it is, the first mail is malicious. 2, yes, the second mail is safe. 3, M. Okay, this is just for your reference. I am typing this. Shall I show the activity now? Shall I show the activity now? So you are required to take care of this activity. I am just going to show the activity. So this is email number 1. I'm going to show this. Please wait. This is email number 1. Okay. So take your time, analyze whether it is a malicious mail or genuine mail. Okay. So this is email number 1. I'm giving you some time. Go through it and tell me and make a note of your answer, and we will discuss the answers later. No need to type your answer in the chat now. Just mention 1 M or 1 yes in your paper. This is email number 1. Just observe the email. I hope you are done. Let's go to email number 2. This is email number 2. This is email number 2. I hope you are done with email number 2. Let's move on to email number 3. So somebody is asking, Vinny is asking, is Facebook working for you? Hey, I think Facebook is down. I can't log in at all, no matter what. Can you try this? He has given a link. So you are required to find out 3 is M or yes, right? M means malicious, yes means safe. I hope you are done with email 3. We will go to email number 4. It's an advertisement mail. I will just scroll a little bit. You are required to see up to this. This is more important. Okay, go through this. This is email number 4. Don't take much time. No intricate details here. Don't take much time. Now I will move on to email number 5. This is email number 5. You are needed. Vincent is saying you are needed, and he has given some message here. And the message is from the FBI, American FBI, right? And the superintendent Vincent, American FBI. Go through this mail. Let's go and find right, sir. Correct. Okay. I hope you are done. This is email number 6. If it is not clear, just see the from address, to address, and the content. And then comes email number 7, the last email number 7. I hope you are done with this. Now let's analyze the answers for all these emails. I hope you have noted this. Can I have your answers in the chat? Can I have your answers in the chat? Take your time and answer this. No, you shift enter and give all your answer in one stretch. Sohan Sarkar, you have given individually. So you, if you give enter, it will be sent. You shift enter so that you will get all, next line will be applied. Shift enter. Thank you, Mr. Arogya Raj Jovit. It's your answer, right? I will show the right answer. Bhargavi, you are very smart enough, I think. I'll have to take it like 1M, 2S, 3M, 4M, 5M, 6. Only 6 you have given. Okay. Okay, we will analyze the answers. I think it's time consuming one. If we wait for others, we will analyze the answers. Somebody is unmuted. Can you mute your mic? Please mute your mic. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We will see the answers for the activities. So email number 1, it's clearly not a spam email. It's a safe mail, right? So the email is not malicious. You know why? It's the conversation between two people and there is no hyperlink kind of stuff in order to get, okay? It doesn't mean that whenever you have hyperlink, it's a problem. Okay, it's not like that. There are chances where the bank itself will give you a hyperlink, but please make a note, banks or many authentic people will not give hyperlinks, okay? Just like that. So they will ask you to log into your internet banking credential and see the offer. Can you understand? So hyperlinks are always dangerous. We don't know where it is going to take to us, right? Where it is going to take us. So email number 1 is safe. And coming to email number 2, and email number 2, the email claims to be from OneDrive. Can you understand? The email is claiming to be from OneDrive, like it's a Microsoft product. But can you see the sender address is from Russia, RU. Venture.ru is a very, very, very well-known malicious email account. Okay, Venture.ru. So you must be very careful that OneDrive is a product of Microsoft, which is an American product. But the email is claiming like it's not from America, it's from Russia. Okay. So it seems to be like, and again, one more thing is, without authenticating the user information, there is a link called update your account. So it is suspicious, right? So obviously email number 2 is not safe. So it's malicious. 1 yes, 2 M. What about 3? It's like Vinny is asking, is Facebook working for you? And then a hyperlink is given, and this seems to be like a compromised one. Okay. The sender, if you just what the sender has done, he has used this link and tried to access facebook.com. Okay. And finally he's saying his Facebook account is not working. So sender's account is compromised and he's asking one of his friends to check whether it is working or not. So sender himself has been compromised with the attack. Can you understand? And one more thing, this Facebook is not actual Facebook. Can you see the difference in the B? Okay, this is not Facebook, but when you are in a hurry-burry, when you see the link, you will just click on it and you will change your activities. And the 4th email is a safe email. It's just an advertisement email, which is forwarded from one person to another and from that person to another person. Okay, so the email number 4 is definitely safe. Okay, so just to see, email 1 is safe, 2 is malicious. What about 3? It is also malicious, and 4 is safe. And coming to email number 5, it is obviously Vincent claims to be is from Superintendent Vincent from FBI, but actually it's not. Okay, you can witness it easily. So 5 is malicious. And what about 6? 6 is safe. Why? Because it's the conversation between two guys of the organization. Okay, so 6 is safe and they are using some email client. And 7, it's obviously malicious. Okay, 7 is not safe, it's malicious because the sender, he claims that he is Mike Ferris, but the email ID is not saying he is Mike Ferris. Okay, so this is what the activity that will help you. It will definitely prevent you from phishing attack. Now let's move on to the topic. The next topic, I hope I am not going to concentrate more on this, but I want to emphasize this. What is the data being transmitted between the sender computer and the receiver computer? You can very well use this packet sniffing tool. Packet sniffing is the act of capturing the packets. So whatever the packets it's flowing through your network, you can capture the packets that is flowing through your network or your computer network. And can you see there, this packet sniffing can be done using a hardware or a software. Okay, either a device can do this or a software can do this. Okay, whoever does it, they are called as packet sniffers. Okay, already I have given the answer in the initial part of the lecture. Can I have the answer in your chat? What packet sniffer you know? What packet sniffer you know? I've given this answer when I was explaining something in the initial part of the lecture. Do you know any packet sniffers? Can I have your response in the chat? Yeah, many people are saying Wireshark. Yeah, Wireshark is a very popular packet sniffing software. Okay, it's not a device, it's a software. Good. It's very powerful. If you have time, you go through that tool. It's a very, attackers also use this tool. For what purpose you are using it matters, right? Just to explore your packet, you can use packet sniffers. You can use packet sniffers to know what traffic is flowing between your computer and the destination computer. What is which process is consuming more bandwidth? All stuff can be explored using packet sniffers. Okay, that's the tool, packet sniffer. Very good. Now let's move on to the next part. So the next part is the packet sniffing tool. I hope I am not going to concentrate on this. So packet sniffing. Now, the last phase of this lecture is dealing with the confidentiality. I told you in the cryptographic environment, like a sender is going to send some data and receiver is going to receive the data. And between the sender and the receiver, there are miles of distance, either geographical distance or many routers are involved. So once the data comes out of our network, obviously it is not in our hands. So we don't know what is going to happen to the data, but we believe that the data is going to reach the destination, right? So when the data comes out of your network, you are encrypting your data, right? So that encryption requires some encryption algorithms like RSA algorithm or elliptic curve cryptography or advanced encryption algorithms or RC5 or anything or data encryption standards, whatever you prefer, okay? And that needs a key to do the encryption. Okay, so generally when some algorithm is there, it takes the original message or the plain text and it converts the text into unreadable text. So in the internet, this unreadable text only is going to flow. Okay, there are some alternatives. I told you, right, when you are going to send your confidential data to your friend, don't send your data just like that. Even if you encrypt and send, there are some pros and cons with that approach, right? When you encrypt the data and send, there are some advantages and disadvantages. So one of the alternatives to do is the steganography. The steganography means, a steganography is the practice of concealing your hiding. Okay, steganography is the practice of concealing a file or a message or image or video or whatever information you have within another file or message or image or video. So your original data is in one form, you are hiding that original data in another form. Okay, now in the cryptography, the data conversion is happening. Your data is encrypted in a different format and it is sent. Rather in steganography, data hiding is going to take place. Okay, just see some examples. We have hiding the data in the text document in the Word, or we can go for LSB steganography, or in audio you can encrypt your data, you can send your data. So I'll just give you some examples for this. Now one way of doing this is, I will open a Word document. Can you say I'm simply opening a Word document? Okay, now the Word document is before us. I will randomly create some text, say for example, equal to rand 5 paragraphs and each paragraph with 12 lines. It's some random text I'm creating. Okay. Okay, now you can notice that there is a document and I have some content here. Okay, now if my password is computer, okay, I'm going to store my computer here. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line, I'm placing a C here. C. In the next fifth line, O. Next fifth line, M. P, U, T, E, R. If you note here, your data is actually not converted into another format, rather it is hidden. Can you understand? This is one steganography. Now I'm going to show you an interesting steganography which we call as the least significant bit steganography. Okay, LSB steganography. Just see this. Can you I'm opening this. I'm right click on it, open with Microsoft Windows Photo Viewer. Can you feel any difference between these two images? I want your answers. Do you feel any difference between these two images? I'll give you 15 seconds. Just observe. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can I have your response in the chat? Do you find any difference between these two images? Whatever difference you feel. I'm going to the chat. I want to observe this. A dog is in a cat's leg. Don't go too technical. Now I want you to focus on the images, whether both the images are same or different. Okay, the answer is there are some differences, but as user we are not feeling the difference. I will tell you what is the difference. If you see here, I'm going to create a message and that message is hidden in one of the images. Just see, in one image, this is the original image. Just see, this is the original image and this is the image which is containing information. Like I have saved my password in this image. Do you believe that where did I save my password? I have saved my password in this. Okay, I will just show a demonstration. Can you see here? I'm creating a new file. I'm creating a new file. Let it be a text document. I will say this is my password. This is my password. And let's say computer be my password. Okay, computer. For example, Gmail password. For example, I'm saying, okay, Gmail password, computer, bank password. hello@123. For example, I'm saying, okay, actually this is not my password. So I have saved my password here. I'm saved it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I don't want this password to be available just like that here. At the same time, if I want to share this password to one of my friend, normally you are not supposed to share your password or send your password in Gmail, but in the Gmail policy it is there. But if you still want to do that, you can encrypt and send. Okay, there are some encryption keys there. You can do encryption and send, but you can go for steganography. Okay, just can you see here, this is a original file which is the flower image. I will right click on it. I will open this flower image. This is a flower. So what I'm going to do is, this is the actual image I'm going to take. Let this be the cover image. Okay, I'm going to hide my password inside this, and later I will explain what operation it has carried out. Okay, I will go to the OpenStego tool. It's an open source tool. Okay, you have a tool called OpenStego. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my password in this tool. So original, my message, where is my message? I'm going to take this. This message is in date 3. Okay, I'm going to the message part. It's in day 3 where my message is. It's my password, right? So I have taken my message. It's in the text document and I am going to store this in a cover file, right? So where is the cover file? It's flower1, I guess, right? It's flower1. What's the name of the file? It's flower1, right? So I'm clicking on this and this is the cover file, flower1. Okay, open. And where I'm going to store this file? In the same location. Okay, I will put that in the same location with another name called hidden. hidden double N I am using, for example. Okay, and it is asking me to give what encryption algorithm you want to use. Okay, you only two options are there. You can create your own encryption algorithm also. So any encryption algorithm you prefer, and it is asking you to protect it with a password. I'm giving 123 as a password. I am hiding this. Can you see this is now processing? It is now processing. Previously there was no file called hidden. Now can you see a hidden file which is available here? Can you see this hidden file is there? If you just open this, I will open in Paint. Okay, you won't feel any difference. Do you think that a password is hidden in this file? No, nobody will believe there is a password. Now your receiver receives this file. Okay, now the receiver has received this file. Let's say I will delete this my password. Okay, now can you see I am deleting my password? There is no my password, just for demonstration. Okay, but still your password is stored here. Okay, let's say what the receiver is going to do. He's going to extract the data from it. So he's going to take the steganography file. So the data which is hidden in hidden, right? Hidden. Just open it. And where he wants to get this file. Let this be in the same folder, original. Okay, I want the file to be in the original format. And I will give the password which I use for doing this job. Extract. Now it's extracting the original data. I'm sorry, I think I have done some mistake here. Don't give the file location, the file name. Can you see the name of the original file is mymessage.txt, right? So I'm extracting the data. Can you see my data is now extracted and I got my password file back. Can you see my password is now available? So this is how you can do your encryption. This is how you can protect your data, which is flowing between the sender computer and the receiver computer. Now, what is actually being done? It's a very interesting part. The interesting part is that, I will just open this image, open with Paint. Just take one pixel and see what is the color for this pixel. Okay, I am going to assign a new color for this pixel. For example, I will take Word document and I will let you know. I think it will be better for you. So what I will do is I will create a, where is that? So I will create a circle. I will create one more circle. Okay, I'm going to fill two colors. Just see, I'm going to fill RGB color. It is 255, 255. RGB, red is 255 and blue is also 255. Okay, okay, I'm just filling this color here. Okay, this is yellow color, right? Again, I'm going to the edit color. It's not 255, it's 252. And again, it's not 25 here, it's 252. Okay, I'm changing this and I'm using the color now. Can you see both are same color only? User will not feel any difference, because when you see the user, when you see the color format, every color is with bits, right? So if you see for 252, for 255, all bits are 1. I will take a black color and I will write this. For 255, it's all bits are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? But for 252, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0. Okay. If you note in these two cases, this is what the actual data and this is what the actual data for this color, right? If you observe, if you remove these two portions and if you use 0, 0 also, you are getting the same color. So this is the MSB part, most significant bit part. This is the least significant bit part, LSB part, right? Least significant bit. I'm not using my stylus. I'm just drawing. I'm just scribbling. It will be ugly. Okay. If you want, I'll just connect and do. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I'm connecting my stylus. Yeah. If you observe here, it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? This is the original data. So this is my original image, original data. Now what I'm going to do here is, instead of the original data, I'm taking the most significant bits. This is the most significant bit, right? The most significant bit portion. Okay. and the remaining two places are the least significant bit portions, right? So instead of 1 1, which is actually there in the original image, I'm going to use my text, right? For example, if my character is A, this is going to have some binary, right? And I'm going to take this 2 and going to place it here. Okay, this is instead of these two, I'm going to place it here. And in the second pixel, right, this is for 1 pixel. Likewise, you will have another pixel, and remove the last 2 portions of the second pixel and store this data in the second pixel. Okay, and similarly, you repeat this process. Thereby, you can make all your data available in the covered image. So a yellow color remains as an yellow color because user is not going to feel much difference with this, because you are not going to affect the most significant bit. You are going to use the least significant bit, and that is what the concept behind LSB steganography. And that's why when we open the image, we are not finding any difference. Seems to be like the same sunflower, and this is also the same sunflower. But at the behind, you have some data which is stored in the least significant bit of every pixel. Can you see this is for 1 pixel R? Similarly, you have for G. Similarly, you have for RGB color format, right? R, you have it for R. Just give me. So color, if it is displayed, it is having 3 portions, right? It's RGB, a red color, blue color, and green color. So we have RGB color format here. So this is R, this is G, this is B. What is the color pattern for RGB? The maximum is 255 with the minimum 0. Similarly, for G also we have 255 and 0. And similarly for blue color also, it's from 0 to 255. When it is 255, you have 8 bits, right? From 0000, 0000 to 11. This is the maximum. Every color will be having this red color value, blue color value, and green color value. For every color, just remove this last 2 bits and store these, and take these 2 bits and use these 2 bits for your data. So your data is going to be hidden in this place. So a red color remains the red color only, but it's not clearly visible to all the participants. So that is what the LSB steganography is all about. So we have focused on the LSB steganography, right? And that's it, guys. What we have learned in today's lecture, we saw some attacks, the email spoofing attack with the help of a demo, and we understood the phishing attack with the help of an activity, and also we have seen the steganography with the help of a demo. So whatever the outcomes, objectives we have set, I think we have met with the objectives. I hope you are clear with this. Now we will have some question answer section for the last 10 minutes, and we will wind up after.
Shall we conclude today's session?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm okay with it.
Yes. Yeah, I will very much thankful to Professor Prabhu who conducted this very informative and very knowledgeable session to all our participants. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting and presenting the things. Thank you very much. Thank you, participants.
Thank you all for your patience listening. Thank you all. I'm signing off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.